fantastic to be here after hearing so much about this Nexus crowd from not only you, Clint, but people I meet around the world, and finally, at least me seeing you in person, Rachel. So thanks so much. And to your question, well, I'm Norwegian and I'm a medical doctor by education, but since I was a kid, I've been a hardcore environmentalist at heart, and that has really been my core passion. And then, I mean, long story, I ended up starting something called EAT, which basically is a multi-stakeholder platform to bring all the stakeholders that are involved across sectors, disciplines, and borders to fix the broken food system into one that is sustainable, efficient, inclusive, and fair, and that delivers healthy diets to all the people on the planet. So it's a big task, and and not something one organization can do alone. That is basically what EAT is about. It's about bringing collaboration and co-creation and cross-fertilization around some of the biggest issues we are facing today through the lens of food.
Yeah, thank you, Gunhild. You know, it's interesting, and she'll share some statistics with you guys here soon, but what's going on in our food systems it's abysmal. It's actually terrifying. And the reason I got involved in the seed vault and the crop trust was because Marie shared with me that 93% of our fruits and vegetables in the United States in the last 100 years are just no longer in production. Who is Gunhild Stordalen? I mean, tell us just who you are. I mean, give us a taste.
Well, that is, yeah, I'm probably a little bit weird because I grew up in the rural Norwegian countryside with most of my friends had 4 legs, and those with 2 legs, they were mostly roosters or chickens. So being a bit disturbed by that, but I at the age of 7, first to say, my parents, they are really nature-loving people, and they brought me and my younger siblings out in nature, learned us all about, I mean, plants and animals and fish and all the kind of the ecosystem and how it worked. But we also saw the damage that we as humans inflicted on the planet, such as dead trees, literally looking like graveyards for a 7-year-old, and my dad told me that was because of acid rain from Europe and obviously destroying the forest. So I had nightmares when, I mean, through the first year at school, and woke up screaming and thought that we as humans would destroy the planet, and I was particularly concerned about the animals that I cared so much about. So I decided that I wanted to do something about it, and out in the area where we lived, I mean, there was no correction, so no one told me that everything is possible and what can a single child do. But I started to fundraise for the rainforest, and actually started out my philanthropy career by stealing toys to raise money for the rainforest, 1 krone at a time. So that was kind of where my passion started out, and I decided that I need a voice, because I mean we was an average family, and I didn't have any money to give away, so my idea was to really find a way to make an impact, and I decided to do like my mom, to become a doctor, and ended up going through med school and bumping into a guy owning a lot of hotels. So yeah.
And owning a lot of hotels is just like a part-time thing, yeah, in addition to what you do with EAT. But maybe, because you mentioned that, I mean, you could talk a little, because the two worlds...
A lot about my low lives. No, I'm going to tell about how I ended up studying EAT, maybe.
Yeah. But the two worlds come together. Like, even the work you're doing with EAT is now, bleeding into the work you're doing with Nordic Choice.
Yeah. So that is actually, that story is why, how I ended up stepping into the food related challenges, because and after med school I took a PhD where I basically, I mean, my take-home message was that science alone is not going to change the world. Unless someone acts on that science, it's not going to have an impact. And I felt I was wasting my time, although probably I didn't. But then when I got involved in the hospitality industry, and my husband, I don't think he actually knew what he was doing at that time, but he invited me to sit on the board, mostly to have an excuse to bring me along on company trips and boring stuff where spouses were not allowed. But anyway, I knew nothing about business at that time, so I started doing what I knew something about, and that was obviously also where my passion were in terms of the sustainability of the operation, and also obviously the health side of things. And when I started reading, what are the challenges facing the hospitality industry in terms of environments, I was so shocked to see that as much as 70% of an average hotel's footprint is due to food and beverage. And obviously I knew it was a big health challenge, but I had no idea it was such a big impact on the climate. I mean, the food system is the single biggest driver of climate change, and only the meat industry is emitting more emission than all transport in the world. So it's a big thing, and also obviously all the other challenges such as workers' rights and the animals, I mean animal welfare in the supply chain, etc. So my idea was to set up some internal guidelines for the hotels on what to serve. Food that was good for people, I mean guests and employees, and also good for the environment. And I realized that there was no answer to that. When I started searching online after scientific reports, nothing looking into all of this. Lots of published papers on single issues, but nothing looking cross-sectoral disciplines. And obviously, before we have answers on how to get it right on food for people and for planet, we are not going to deliver on the SDGs. We are not going to deliver on the Paris Climate Agreement. So we need to get it right on food. And the knowledge is not only a problem, because there is, at that time, this was back in 2011, 2012, there was no platform, no meetings bringing together all the stakeholders of the food system that had to be involved. I realized that obviously the science, we need to do something there, but we also need a way to find or to bring that science into life by working with decision makers and obviously, I mean, business and entrepreneurs and even chefs. So that was kind of where we ended up studying it.
Amazing, and we're going to come back, I think, to some of the work of EAT, and we'll end on that because it's important, and I want to leave everyone here as well with a call to action, so stay tuned for that, guys. But you mentioned when you were 7 years old running around in the countryside and the impact that your parents had on you. I wonder what they think about where you're at now, and you know, is there been other people as well that have been mentors or guides for you along the journey?
Yeah, well, my mom, she has always been a bit embarrassed when I've been running around and saying that I wanted to save the world. I mean, a bit naive, but now she's not laughing or so embarrassed anymore. I hope, but because she see obviously that is what we are doing is having an impact and really bringing people together in what I'm trying to export one word from the Norwegian language, which is dugnad, and this is a kind of a voluntarily collaborative effort, bringing together people with different skills, ideas, backgrounds, to do something bigger together. But also in terms of people that have had impacts, obviously my husband, he changed everything. And also opened new doors, and I obviously what I had to reflect on when I ended up marrying him, and was will the right thing be to continue working as a doctor, or should I take a totally new direction and start working on our philanthropy, because he had been doing a little bit of philanthropy, but very like spontaneous and no strategic. How can I have most impact with my kind grants? So that was kind of where I also ended up wanting to take some responsibility, and also as a marriage gift, or the wedding gift was for me to set up this family foundation and start working more strategically on how we could have most impact on with the philanthropy we were doing.
Yeah, he's an amazing man. Yeah. Shift gears for a bit, and maybe a topic that I don't know if it is less comfortable, but I know it's not one that we always talk about. But you've had some major health issues, and as part of that, I suppose it's amplified the importance of your work for you even more, but certainly for others, in terms of healthy living, healthy lifestyle, and what happens when you don't have health. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the health challenges that you faced, how it's manifested itself into your work, into your life. And share that with us. It'd be amazing.
You know, that was, I mean, I've learned the hard way that it's not only your mind that is your limits, it's also your body. And I got really sick. I've never, to start, I haven't been good at taking care of myself. I mean, I've been good in terms of eating and exercising, but I haven't really taking rest and sleep and stuff like that. And then I got diagnosed with a very rare autoimmune disease 4 years ago, and I've had some heavy experimental treatment with stem cell transplants since then, which is why I'm here. But I've also learned that and really seen the importance of getting it right on the basics. So eat, move, sleep, and even mindfulness, and really starting to see not only fixing problems when they occur, but also start looking into how we can more prevent them. And this was also some of the things that I now realize, looking back, that was lacking in med school, because we as doctors were trained to fix problems, treat sick patients when they knocked at the hospital doors, but no one talked about. I mean, I hardly remember we had a course in nutrition and preventive medicine. It was the least sexy topic you could think of in med school. And even I wanted to become a trauma surgeon and fix things. And this is a bit of the challenge we are facing as a society as well, that we are so reactive. We are running around and we are fixing symptoms of a failing system, and nothing is more or exemplifies this better than food. Because it's really, I mean, it's striking to see how much money and brain power that goes into coming up with better diabetes treatments, coming up with better diagnostics, and investment in new surgical techniques. But there's so little focus and so little interest in preventing things from happening in the first place.
So I know they're dinging us. I've got a couple more questions. So you've mentioned on a high level there's some like major problems. Like the genie comes to you, he's giving you a couple wishes. Let's say 3 wishes. Like what are the wishes in terms of how we solve some of the challenges that you're talking about? Well,
we believe that we need to set a 2-degree for food, like we have for climate, or science-based targets for food systems transformation. Which is one thing we are working on, and we have launched something called the Eat Lancet Commission as the first effort to set these scientific targets. And then obviously we need to change policies. We need to start rethinking agricultural subsidies. And I think the most important thing we need to see is that policymakers are starting to developing comprehensive policies from farm to fork, and having food and agricultural policies that look into health and sustainability outputs.
And finally, one thing, I mean, if there's one thing we can do, you know, you spend your whole career in food and the food movement working with the biggest CEOs and the biggest leaders on the planet. In your opinion, right now, for everyone that's in this room, we've got a lot of eyes and ears on us. Like, what's something that we can each do every day?
And this is the thing about why food is so powerful, because it brings together stakeholders, but it's also a way of empowering people, because the most important decision we do as individuals every time we sit down is what we put on our plate for our health and for the environment. And Michael Pollan, the New York Times food author, is saying it so well. Eat real food, mostly plants, and not too much.